IoT Unplugged, where we talk to industry leaders, innovators, and major players in the Internet of Things, bringing you the best and latest insights. Tune in to learn more. In this episode, Ivo Rook, Chief Operating Officer of Once, joins me to talk about the cellular IoT market, challenges in connectivity, and how Once is looking to address this with their model. Thanks so much for joining me today, Ivo.
Happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Could you start us off by introducing yourself and talking a little bit about who you are?
Yes, Ivo Rook. I consider myself to be an IoT pioneer. I have grown up in the operator world, and then I did a stint in 2 years in private equity, investing in IoT technology, and that's how I found Once. I have become obsessed by some of fundamental truth in IoT, and that is in IoT, you can only make margins if you scale, and you can only scale if you're truly global. And when I looked at Once as an investor, I saw technology with the ability to simplify, but also to scale IoT in a grand way. That's why we invested. That's why I joined the company. And the purpose of Once is relatively simple. Is we have re-engineered the entire supply chain of IoT so that our customers can develop better connected products. And the idea is we disrupt the IoT industry so that our customers can change the world. So we're kind of one of those companies sits a little bit further in the back that deliver products to our customers to build better connected solutions all over the world, and literally all over the world. And that's why I joined Once, and that's why I enjoy doing what I do.
That's great. It's always good to enjoy what you do. So there were a couple of interesting things you mentioned there that I do want to pick apart. But before we get on to discussing things like that in more depth, what are you seeing as being major trends in IoT that you think will relate to what you do at Once and affect what you do?
If I look at it really from a high level, and I look on IoT, there's a bit of a turning point, because the last 5 years or maybe even 10 years, IoT was almost like a purpose. The purpose became to create connected products. But in it, when you think about it, to create a connected product, whether that is a solar panel, whether that is a utility meter, whether it is a fleet device, whether it is a medical device, the purpose is not to get something connected. The purpose is actually to gather data from these endpoints and do something useful with it so that now you can either generate more energy, drive cars more efficiently, save more patients from hassle, or even improve the treatments. Which at this moment I see that the purpose of IoT is actually not so much to build connected products, but what you now see with AI is that actually IoT is becoming more a supply chain towards the higher purpose, and that is AI, and that is informed intelligence to do things in a better way. And I think IoT is undergoing a bit of a humbling phase, where we need to realize that our purpose is not to do IoT. No, our purpose is to enable sensors to be deployed everywhere across the supply chain in the world to support gathering data so that people can run better AI use cases that actually make the changes that are needed, whether it is for the climate, whether that is for efficiency, whether that is just to drive higher sales. So I think IoT is going through a bit of a humbling phase, and I think that's a good thing.
You mentioned there being a turning point and it sounds like this is something you've observed. At what point do you think this turning point began to happen? Was there a noticeable time, or has it been a very gradual shift that's kind of hard to pinpoint?
It's hard to pinpoint it exactly. However, as we go through our meetings with investors and analysts alike, what we're seeing is that there is like a turning point per vertical that we support. Yeah, our company has a horizontal technology. We provide connectivity to be built into devices that work basically all over the world on a single charge. And as I said earlier, they are in multiple verticals. And what we see is that there's a tipping point per vertical. In the fleet, that has happened about 5 years ago. where when you run a business that is non-connected, you're going to have a lesser service at a higher price point, which basically means the entire vertical becomes connected. We started to see that in solar panels. Solar panels, you don't put those on the roof anymore when they're not connected because they're difficult to maintain. We see it in vending machines, we see it in POS devices, we see it in medical devices, that the moment that the new versions that are being connected are no longer the exception, but the rule to provide a higher service at a lower cost, that's kind of the turning point where the entire industry goes. Utility went through that. I don't think you'll find any utility companies in any countries anymore that deploy new meters that aren't connected in some way. Now, why is that important? Is the moment that entire industry moves, the price points, the acceptance of quality, the expectations of customers also move at mass. And I feel that that has happened in the last 2 to 3 years. If you allow me to just give a metaphor out of other industries, what has happened, it happened about 20 years ago with messaging. Yeah, it started as a technology invented by operators, but then it became mainstream, driven by software companies. So, it was invented by operators, but it was made big by the likes of WhatsApp and Twilio. It also happened with unified comms. That also was invented by operators, and all of the operators had unified communication devices and video rooms and so on, but they're all domestic. When did it take off? When the likes of Teams and Zoom took over, turned it into software, and made it globally available. Exactly the same thing is happening in IoT nowadays. It was also invented by operators, but operators are domestic. They have only a network in one country, maybe two, maybe three. Go back what I said earlier, it's a skill game. And what has now happened in IoT? Software companies like Once, but also Sorocom and other companies like Monogoto and so on, and Core, they are turning it into software and able to play the global game. And exactly that tipping point started about a year ago, 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And so you at Once to provide a very simplified explanation, provide connectivity to companies, but what is it that's different to other connectivity providers, or what is it you're doing that you think is similar to software making things more accessible? How are you making connectivity more accessible?
Okay, bear with me. This is a bit of a brain exercise. We provide connectivity while realizing that networks don't matter. Now, what I mean with that is the following. Yes, we provide the ability to connect to a deployed sensor for the lifetime of that sensor. Hence our name, by the way, Once, is we build our product into the connected solutions of our customers. And once they then have activated it, it will work for the lifetime of that device. And that could be up to 10 years when it is a utility meter in a basement, or it could be 3 months if it is a stick-on tracker for asset tracking and so on, and everything in between. Now, what sets us apart is that we do not charge for the network, because we see it as our responsibility to make sure that a sensor operates for the lifetime of that sensor and can be managed. It can be managed by firmware updates, controlled, and so on. That is really what matters, is the platform. It's the access to the device and generate data from that. Our customers deploy millions of these sensors, and to manage them for the lifetime. Now, that there's also data needed in order to do so, that's kind of what we put on our end as an investment. We have big operators on our cap table. So what we've done is we've taken the complexity of managing multiple operators, folded it into a single tariff. Our base tariff is you connect the device for 10 years for $10 anywhere in the world. So what the customers are paying for really is the ability to manage that device, pull the data of it, and process it in their cloud for the lifetime of the device.
And so you've touched upon in your explanation of what it is that you guys are doing some of the difficulties that those with devices who are trying to connect it face. Could you elaborate a little bit more about some common challenges that perhaps your customers come up across or other companies that come across?
Frankly, there are too many. The first of them is actually the access to networks and having to anticipate in advance wherever you send a device in the world, what type of networks are available, at what cost. Unfortunately, networks in each country are slightly different. Different frequencies, different bands, as we call it, different technologies, and so on. So what we have developed is a technology that basically allows us to connect to every possible network of every possible operator, and then simplify it by, and by the way, I say simplify, but that's hard work. We connect into these networks in a specific way that then makes the data stream that comes from these devices once they've accessed the network exactly identical, what operator they're on, where in the world they are, and what technology they're using. And it allows the way we do that to optimize, for example, battery utilization. So on average, a battery powered device connected to our network works between 30 and 40% longer than if it is connected directly to an operator network. It allows us to stream the data independent from what country it comes from in exactly the same way. Now, you asked about customer challenges. These are exactly the challenges that our customers have. They don't want to build a SKU. Let's say that you build a connected light bulb. You don't want to build a light bulb for Europe, for Asia, for the US. You want one light bulb that works the same. A second thing is low code. You had an interesting interview with the CEO of FlowViews, low code environments where customers can focus on their use cases, but pooling data and structuring the data, integrating it into their cloud. That should be something that you can just script onto a sensor. You shouldn't develop your own code to do so, because the components with which these solutions work should be standardized. Yeah, you should be able to pull one module out and another in, put a script on it, and off you go. So that is another thing that we've done. And the third one, super relevant, is mobile networks are complicated because operators want to switch the ability to communicate to their network on, off, on, off. Now, that functionality is just there to serve the operators, got nothing to do with their customers. And we've switched that off. Our SIMs are permanently on, so that you take the handshake out of the network, which simplifies it because our customers need the devices in staging environments, in shipping environments, during shelf life that they haven't really sold to the end customer yet. And the fact that we have like electricity and always on SIM massively simplifies the supply chain of our customers, and they don't have to worry about, does it sit 2 months in my distribution or does it sit 6 months on the shelf, and where do I ship it from? It's these type of things that we design out of their supply chain to simplify for them.
Mm-hmm. And certainly, if you're a company operating in different countries, you're having to deal with different operator agreements, which, as I understand, can be quite turbulent. And there isn't always a guarantee that one agreement you make will be there the next day.
Exactly. So what we do is we guarantee that as long as there's a network available, our customers can use it, and the price that they've paid to us for 10 years of connectivity or 5 years of connectivity or 3 years or 3 months, whatever they bought from us, and the risk of the volatility of the operator market is on us. So our customers get 100% plannability, and plannability is super relevant for them because they run their pricing models and so on. So they can embed something as variable as connectivity as a fixed price component into their solutions. But there's more, because yes, local operators is one thing, but it's not, I said, we're a network company knowing that networks are actually irrelevant. So what it is that we've invested in as well is having local warehouses, having the ability to have chip supply distributed across the world, accommodating their supply chain. We have customers that test in China, ship for assembly to Mexico, and then ultimately for end use distribution in Europe and the US. So we have warehouses all over the world, but we also have the ability to take payments all over the world in different currencies. So that a customer of ours that ships their connected devices all over the world, they have their customers sitting in these countries, and therefore they have legal entities in these countries. So with us, we've got legal entities and payment systems in local currency in Asia, all over Europe, all over the US and Canada and Latin. So it's not just about the network. If anything, let's take the network for granted and focus on customer service local, payment local, warehouse local, and being able to treat data locally. Yeah, there's all around the world, there are data zones and regulations about that. All of that our customers can configure themselves in the cloud. And that's the other thing I'll say about it. Our customers have 100% self-serve, fully digital. Otherwise, we could not have grown as fast as we did.
So, hearing you talking about the challenges, talking about how you're seeking to address them at once, I suppose my next question is quite a big one, which is why do you think the model has stayed the same for so long and these challenges have gone on for so long? And it doesn't seem necessarily like many companies, speaking, just non-professionally, but many companies are looking to address that.
Unfortunately, I have to say that there is a built-in inefficiency for the world of cellular. I personally think that the GSMA is doing a relatively poor job in extending the standards towards the supply chain. So the GSMA, which is basically a governing body that sets standards across networks, they're making it too complicated. They're over designing networks for IoT with narrowband, CAT-M, CAT-M1, CAT-M2, CAT-M whatever, and then they make changes and changes and changes, which actually renders cellular technology as a highly unstable technology. I'm sorry to say, when you're a module vendor, you can't deal with that amount of changes. And when you're a customer that says, well, hang on, so I build a module with narrowband in one country, that narrowband works, in another it doesn't. Then there's whole swaths of countries that went in CAT-M1. Do I now need a dual mode in my module? And now the module costs go up, but everywhere there's LTE. But then LTE can do a few things that narrowband can't, and so on. I mean, listen, I call ourselves a little bit the Robin Hood of IoT. Yeah, we take from operators and we give to developers, and we take from big software platforms and we give to developers. But quite frankly, the cellular world is too complex for IoT. I mean, phones get generated, phones, it's the same technology. In phones, you switch phones on average 2.5 years. So phones can update the hardware cycle way more regularly than IoT. IoT devices get deployed on average for 6.5 years. They can't deal with all these generational changes. And unfortunately, although the intentions of the GSMA are good with the 3GPP standards that they built, they're making it so complex with too many generations that they're not keeping it constant enough for the module providers to provide one single SKU at the lowest possible cost that gets deployed everywhere. Now, maybe all these changes create opportunities as well for other companies. Maybe it does. But what I don't like about it is it renders cellular, and it hurts me to say, but it's true nonetheless, as the least attractive network technology out there. Wi-Fi, super consistent. Bluetooth, super consistent. LoRa, big compliments to LoRa, super consistent. And then you get cellular, totally inconsistent all the time. Now, it helps us because it creates companies like us. But if you look at the amount of cost that we have and complexities that we need to deal with these different modules and network types on behalf of our customers, life could and probably should be simpler. It's a long answer, but it's a fundamental problem of cellular.
long answers are absolutely fine and welcomed on the podcast. So you mentioned some of the connectivity technologies. You mentioned, I think, Cat1Biz. You mentioned LTM. To kind of pick at what you're saying, it sounds like you think that there are too many technologies out there and too much choice for module vendors to know what to invest in. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, the metaphor for networks, I mean, operators will try and convince you different, but between us, listen, there are no good networks and there are no bad networks. They're just networks, quite frankly. I mean, operators, they use the same spectrum that they acquire in an auction. They all use the same technology provided essentially by Ericsson, Cisco, Nokia, and maybe a bit of Samsung. And they all use the same phones, two types, Android and iOS. I mean, hello. In the end, it's not that complicated. And if the only real metaphor for cellular technology is either gas or electricity, yeah. Now, when you do, I mean, so as far as I'm concerned, you have cellular. In the modern world, you need electricity. We still need gas, yeah, and we need a network. Now, how many forms of electricity are there? 110, 220. Took us a while to get there, but relatively predictable. Yeah. How many forms of gas are there? Three: regular, diesel, and maybe something in between. How many network technologies are there? It's insane. And it's not necessary. So I would actually say, yes, of course, there is some advantage on narrowband. What's the advantage of narrowband? Operators can deploy it without eating into their spectrum. So it's kind of a freebie for the operators because you can deploy it between the bands. What's the advantage of Cat-M and the versions thereof? The disadvantage is it takes 2 to 3% of your capacity, but it actually is a better technology. It has the propagation and all the advantages that narrowband has and a bit more speed. So there's many things that Cat-M can do that narrowband can't, and there's nothing that narrowband can that Cat-M can't. Make up your mind. Either all go narrowband or all go Cat-M. Or just decide that LTE needs to be so good and let the module providers squeeze as much out of you can as they can out of the network, and just keep it consistent with the same technology as for phones. And the module providers and the software companies will figure out to get the best out of a consistent network. Just as we have figured out with electricity that because we know it's either 220 or 110, let the software and the hardware companies do their job, and they will squeeze everything there is to be squeezed out of that. As in gas, if you look at the amount of innovation in engines on efficiency and speed and capacity, do you think we would have gotten so far if we would have changed the type of gas every 5 years? No, because they had to go back to the drawing board and develop complete new engines. Keep it simple, keep it steady. Operators, focus on phones, forget about IoT. It's not your business, it's a global business. They have no right to play there, bar one or two real global operators. Let the software companies and hardware companies figure it out. You guys focus on phones, keep your network as low cost and efficient and available as possible, and we'll do the rest. That would be my dream.
And it sounds like there are some recommendations you have there about how you think that the industry could change to move forward.
Yes, but there is, listen, I mean, being GSMA is not easy. Yeah, they're under a ton of pressure of vendors because, quite frankly, the ones who benefit from each generation change are the vendors. I mean, Ericsson and Nokia, if I'd be them, I'd be pushing 5G, 6G, 7G, 8G, 9G. Why? Because each time that there's a new generation change, they can actually enforce different fundamental economics on network on the operators. So the operators need to deploy it, because if they were to be seen as operating their network at a lesser economic return than their competitors, then their share price goes down. So the vendors have a tremendous incentive to keep developing new generations and then force them on the operators. Now, if you're GSMA, you're in between. I'm pretty sure that if operators are not being recorded, they will say, well, actually, we wouldn't mind if the Gs don't come every third year. We would like a little bit of a stability and so on. But Who am I to say that the GSMA is doing it? And first of all, I'm saying GSMA is not just them; it's kind of a system. Operators and vendors are a little bit too friendly to each other. It's not enough competition, to be frank, in that world. There's two operators, maybe three per country. What do you think? You think that gas and electricity would be where it are when there's only two or three providers per country? As far as I'm concerned, not enough competition out there on the network layer.
And I'm sure this is probably a discussion we could have for a very long time over. But with the benefit of time, why don't we finish off by talking about your, I should say, once's roadmap and what you're looking at in the coming years.
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. So first of all, we're super proud. We just ended 24. We now have more than 30 million devices under management. And we went in that from, less than 800,000 about 3-4 years ago to more than 30 million. We sell from 62 countries. We deliver into 170 countries. So what we're first going to do is keep practicing what I preach. We're going to keep our connectivity portfolio the same. We're not changing for the purpose of it. We want to be predictable. Our pricing stays the same. Our ability to connect across all these networks stays the same. Now, what we are going to put on our roadmap is an increased ability for our customers to manage the performance of the devices once they're on the one's network. Because our base proposition is one price connected for the lifetime of that sensor. But now what we're adding is the ability to manage that lifetime and be with our customers along the whole development and cycle. What does that mean concretely? We have invested in software that allows our customers to do data visualization, firmware updates in a concrete way, and then also that they can roll it back. Battery optimization, so energy savers, more data templates so that they can integrate into the cloud in a better way. And we're continuing to invest in software along those lines to allow our customers to just manage a better performance out of their device. Another big thing in the evolution of Once for 25 is we've had fabulous partners. And one of the reasons why we could have done what we've done is because we have operators who invested in our companies. So we have Deutsche Telekom who invested in our company from the very beginning, SoftBank and Bell. And that has given us the ability to provide a very consistent global performance on networking. But, and I'm proud to say, we've outgrown our investors. The ability, for example, Deutsche Telekom is a formidable partner, but they're European focused. So their network abilities and roaming conditions and so on in Asia and Latin aren't really at par with more localized players. So what we're going to be doing this year is today we have two non-cap table partners, Claro in Brazil and China Telecom in China. We're going to increase that with 2 or 3 more global partners that will allow us to provide an even more consistent connectivity. Again, it's kind of ironic. It's a lot of work and our customers won't notice. The only thing they will notice is that our availability, our network availability in 24 was 99.97% on an endpoint basis. We're obsessed with keeping that the same, so we need to get ahead of the pack. So we're, in a nutshell, we're going to continue to grow, keeping our base product the same. We're going to build more adjacent software services, and we're diversifying our own supply chain to be able to keep our product the same all the time. That's it.
So just a small amount of work then for you guys.
As usual, I mean, I look at January as an extended December, and then as February as we need to add the January workload. We're going a little fast, but that's fun. I mean, to work with about 300 people, super motivated, all of them over the world. We have offices in, going from Tokyo to Sao Paulo, from Madrid to Milan to Hamburg to Cologne. here in Miami, where I am based, soon in Canada as well, and all virtual. We're running a virtual company with small offices, but an enormous amount of video. It's super fun. And our suppliers are with us on the journey. AWS is a great partner. They challenge us all the time, and we challenge them back. And we're their fastest telco in the cloud. So that is a noblesse oblige. Yeah. AWS goes public saying that we are the largest telco run directly out of their cloud in the world. So all we need to do is stay ahead of the rest.
Great. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me about everything in the connectivity world. So thank you, Ivo.
Well, thank you so much. Enjoyed it a lot.